friendship that'll never ever end.
Run!
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie, yo, 388. Day in the neighborhood. My brothers and sisters, it is that time of the week once again, my friends, to go back to the man. It is that time of the week once again, my friends, to go back to that myth. It is that time of the week, my friends, to once again go back to the legend, MrBallen. MrBallen Sundays, y'all. Hope y'all doing excellent out there today. And I'm glad that you came on back to the channel once again to fuck with the bean. And the title of this video is Cleaning Lady Serial Killer Exposed by Reporter. Now, the cleaning lady serial killer is what got me, y'all. This is what got me from the title, because I'm thinking, like, how did she do this? Was she, like, cleaning people's houses as a maid? Or was she, she like a custodian at an apartment complex or something? Like, was she infiltrating people's houses and, like, poisoning them or something, with her cleaning products or something crazy-ish like that? Was her cleaning product her as a cleaning lady? Is that how she got away with being a serial killer until she one day got exposed by one of these reporters? Like, I'm just trying to figure out how she was doing it, because I'm pretty sure it's gonna be freaking crazy. But I digress. We finna see. But before we see, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you might need. Get what you need. Another MrBallen Sunday. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's fucking go.
Today, we're going to look at one of the most unbelievable revenge stories I've ever come across, but you won't even know that it's a revenge story until the very end. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, the next time the like button is out of town, secretly bug their house with cameras and microphones, and then live stream those feeds on the billboards in Times Square, New York. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. In the early evening of May 7th, 2008, a 65-year-old woman named Zivana Temolkoska walked around her kitchen inside of her apartment in the little southeastern European city of Kisevo. Kisevo is a quiet place at the base of this huge mountain in northern Macedonia, and while it's totally beautiful, it's utterly remote, and basically nothing really of note happens here. Zivana cleaned houses for a living, but on this particular day, she was on a day off, and so she was just kind of hanging out at her apartment, waiting for her adult son, named Zoran, to come home. It was a beautiful, warm evening that night, and so Zivana had the windows in the kitchen open as she walked around making herself something to eat, and at some point, as she was doing this, she heard her phone ring. And so she grabbed it and answered, and she heard the sound of her friend on the other line. But her friend's voice sounded strange. It was strained and very uncomfortable, and she was asking Zivana if she was paying attention to the news right now. Did she have the radio on or the TV? And Zivana was like, no, why? And the friend would tell her that all over the news right now, there was this huge, terrible traffic accident that had happened in their town. And unfortunately, Zavana's son, Zoran, who she was waiting for to come home, was apparently involved in this accident. Zavana let out a strangled cry when she heard this, and then just dropped what she was using to make food and turned and ran out the door. And when she did, her neighbor who was outside saw her emerge and yelled out to her, hey, is everything okay? And Zavana, as she literally just continued running towards the road, she basically blurted out to the neighbor that her son was hurt and she was going to the hospital. And this neighbor watched as Zavana just ran down the road, turned the corner, and disappeared. Zavana did not have a car of her own, and so literally she was going to run to the hospital to make sure her son was okay. A little while later, that same neighbor who had just watched Zavana disappear around the corner heard a knock on their door. And so the neighbor went to the door, they opened it up, and they were totally shocked at who they saw standing outside. It was Zavana's son, Zoran, who did not appear to be hurt in any way. But before the neighbor could ask any questions about this, Zoran, who looked visibly confused, said to the neighbor, hey, have you seen my mom? We were supposed to meet and have dinner together, and it's just totally unlike her to disappear without telling me where she was going.
Negro, your son gone looking for you, bro. Where you come from? Was you not involved in this accident at all? Was this like just a big misunderstanding? I got questions for you.
Neighbor just stared at Zoran for a second, having no idea what was going on here. And then the neighbor was like, well, wait a minute, Zoran, were you in a car accident? And Zoran's like, no, what are you talking about? And then the neighbor kind of filled Zoran in about how they had seen his mother run outside, and she had mentioned how her son had been in this car accident, and she literally ran to the hospital. Zoran was just as mystified by this as the neighbor was, and so Zoran just grabbed his phone and called the hospital to see if his mother was there. But when the hospital picked up, they would tell Zoran that his mother was not there, she had not been there all day, and two, even though they had heard reports about this car accident in town, there had not been any car accident victims brought to the hospital at all that day. And so by the end of that night, when Zoran really had no idea what had happened to his mom, where she was, or what was going on with this car accident thing, he just did the only thing he could think to do, which was go to the police and report his mother missing. 9 days later, on May 16th, when still Zavana was missing and the police had no idea what happened to her, there were no new leads, nothing, on this day, a 56-year-old reporter named Vlado Teneski, who actually happened to live not that far away from where Zavana lived, he got a call from one of his police sources. And the source would tell him that Zavana had actually just been found, even though this was not public information, and unfortunately, Zavana was dead. Her body, which had been beaten and strangled and stabbed, had been found wrapped up in plastic and dumped in this illegal dumping area not far from the town's football stadium. The source told Vlado that when her body was searched, they discovered she still had valuables on her person, and so that kind of ruled out the possibility that this was a robbery gone wrong, which was the initial theory about what they were seeing. However, when police had done an initial probe into Zavana's life to figure out who this victim was, they discovered that she was just this poor old cleaning lady who had no enemies to speak of, and so it really just made no sense that she was the victim of such an obviously brutal and intimate murder that was not financially motivated, at least not on the surface. Vlado thanked his source for all the information and then hung up. Vlado's source had sounded really shocked by this murder as he was telling Vlado, but now, as Vlado was sitting here thinking about what he had just been told, he wasn't really shocked as much as he was suspicious. He felt like something just was off about this murder. Maybe Zavana appeared to be this poor old cleaning lady with no enemies, but in reality, maybe that wasn't who she was. Maybe she was leading a secret life that got her killed.
And that's what I'm thinking it gotta be, y'all. Especially if we look at the title of the video, Cleaning Lady Serial Killer. So this lady was a freaking serial killer out here, and somebody came and got revenge. That's what I'm thinking. But this whole made up story about this car accident and her son being injured at the hospital and her running out the house. Like, I don't understand what that gotta do with anything yet. It's gonna come full circle. MrBallen gonna make all this come full circle. But the main thing that's sticking out to me is I believe this lady was targeted by some people because of something she had did in the past. and now they got revenge on her. But let's see.
Or maybe she had stumbled upon something she was not supposed to see, and that got her killed. You know, Vlado had no idea, but he just felt like, you know what, there's something off about this, and it needs to be investigated. Now, Vlado had a reputation in town for being this very aggressive and kind of fearless journalist who had no problem diving headfirst into some of these really murky stories that could involve corruption or misuse of power, and he would get to the bottom of it, and he would publish these articles where he spoke really critically about the government, about police, about anybody really who was in a position of power. But as a result of conducting himself this way, over his 30-year career, Vlado had been threatened with violence many, many times for things he had written or things he was about to write. But even though Vlado knew this Zavanna murder case had the potential to once again put him in hot water with the powers that be, he still felt like it was his responsibility to dive into this thing and get to the truth. So, feeling determined, Vlado grabbed his notebook and pen, and he walked out the front door of his house, and he made the several-minute-long walk over to Zavanna's house. And when he got there, her son, Zoran, opened the door, and a few minutes later, Vlado and Zoran were sitting in the kitchen talking about what had happened. Zoran told Vlado all about how he came home and discovered his mom wasn't there, and then he went to the neighbor's house, and they explained how, they had seen Zavanna running off to the hospital to go look for Zoran, but Zoran's like, I'm not hurt, I didn't get into a car accident, what's going on here? And as Zoran spoke, Vlado took lots of notes and asked lots of follow-up questions, and by the end of this interview, when Vlado felt like he knew everything there was to know about Zavanna, he felt like he actually had a pretty good working theory as to what actually happened to Zavanna. And the reason he felt like his theory could be accurate had to do with what Zoran told Vlado his mother did for a living, that she was a cleaning lady. Now, it took Vlado a couple of days to put together his story. He had to go out and interview dozens more people in the neighborhood. But finally, on May 19th, so just 3 days after Zavanna was found murdered, Vlado published his story in the newspaper. And the story's explosive headline read, "A Serial Killer Stalks Kosovo." Did you know that this...
Here comes MrBallen with his commercial, y'all. But I'm sitting right here like so stunned and so just blank faced because I don't know. How could Vlado even put anything together to come up with that she's a serial killer? Man, I don't know, man. And then even if she is a serial killer, how did that end up leading to her death? And what was up with the whole car accident shit? Was that freaking neighbor who called her the one who ended up killing her because of some stuff she did in the past? This is gonna be crazy, y'all. It's like I still got a million questions for this one. But let's go.
Mysteries, where you can find more new, original, strange, dark, and mysterious content. Go check them out. In the story, Vlado says that Zavanna's murder was very likely not an isolated killing. Instead, her murder was likely linked to 2 other murders of 2 other women. And these 2 other victims looked an awful lot like Zavanna, literally. They were poor, older women who were also cleaning ladies. And so that was why when Vlado was talking to Zoran, and Zoran described how his mother was, what she did for work, what she looked like, that Vlado started to remember these other victims, and he put it all together. The other 2 victims were 64-year-old Mitra Simjanoska, who was murdered in 2005, and the other victim was 56-year-old Lubitsa Lukoska, who was murdered in 2007. Now,
holy shit, my brothers and sisters. Maybe I'm dumb, man. Y'all, hey, when I do dumb stuff, y'all call me out for it. All y'all want to, man. Because I was looking at this title completely different than what I am now. So when it say cleaning lady serial killer, I'm thinking it's a cleaning lady who's a serial killer. But no, it's a serial killer out here that are killing cleaning ladies. That's what it is. So who and why? You fixated on women who go around cleaning. What the fuck? Is still crazy. But yes, man, I was looking at that wrong, and I'll be the first to admit it. But my eyes are still wide open. What the is going on. That still don't change that fact. Let's see.
Vlado's story was totally explosive because what he's saying is that there is a serial killer that is on the loose in this town. But this story was also highly explosive because Vlado spoke very critically about the police who were involved in this investigation. Specifically, he pointed out that the '05 and '07 murders of those two other women, those had been totally mishandled because arrests had been made in at least one of those cases, and clearly whoever they arrested was innocent here. And so the police just totally dropped the ball, at least in Vlado's opinion. And when the police read Vlado's story, they were very upset at him because he was so critical of them. However, the police also did see that Vlado had managed to uncover a lot of new details from all of his interviews with witnesses and people in the neighborhood that did seem to paint a picture of this potentially really being a serial killer, not individual isolated killings. And so the police, based on Vlado's story, would actually begin investigating a serial killer in their midst. They linked all three murders and they began basically a new investigation. However, at the same time they began this new investigation, Vlado began to notice that he was being tailed all the time by police. He would be out in town doing his job, reporting and interviewing people, and there'd just be a police officer standing somewhere in the distance watching him. But Vlado had anticipated that no matter what, he was likely going to face some sort of blowback from the police, and so he just kind of accepted that they were going to watch him and maybe try to intimidate him, but it wasn't going to bother him because he had done his job, he had reported the story the best that he could, and if they wanted to watch him from a distance, they could do that.
Plot twist. Vlado is the fucking cleaning lady serial killer. Bad dog. I don't believe that for real. But when we watching MrBallen videos, man, anything is possible. Vlado probably the one who killed these damn ladies and now he reporting on it. That'll be crazy as hell, man. I really don't think that's it. But it is the possibility that that could be it.
Early June, so about 2 weeks after Savannah had been found murdered, the police, in this new serial killer investigation they were doing, had narrowed down their suspect pool, which was in the hundreds, down to just 3 people. And they felt like they were very close to making an arrest. About a month later, on June 20th, so by this point Vlado is still being trailed by police all the time, but the police have not come out publicly and said anything about the serial killer case. They're just continuing their investigation. But on this day, June 20th, Vlado's editor at the newspaper got a call from a police officer telling the editor they were about to make an arrest in the serial killer case. And as soon as their conversation ended, the editor called Vlado to tell him the news. But when he called Vlado, Vlado didn't pick up, which was very unusual. Vlado always answered his calls. And the editor was also thinking to himself how strange it was that this officer had contacted him and not Vlado. Like, why aren't you going to the guy writing the stories and telling him about this new development? Why are you coming to me? The editor would continue to try calling Vlado several more times, but Vlado never answered, and so ultimately the editor just kind of assumed that Vlado must be busy, interviewing someone, or maybe more likely, he had already learned about this imminent arrest, and he was on scene ready to capture in real time this arrest that was about to take place. Meanwhile, on a quiet street in Kosovo, the police had surrounded this very modest 2-story home that was very overgrown up front. It was surrounded by tall fir trees, and all the windows had heavy drapes covering them up. And then once the police felt like they had totally surrounded this building, a team of officers walked up onto the porch and knocked on the door and yelled out that they were police and whoever was inside to come out with their hands up.
I'm starting to believe more and more that it is fucking Vlado, man. It started off as a joke and now it's starting to feel like reality.
And for a moment, it was just totally silent and tense. And then the police on the porch heard footsteps inside the house. They had their guns ready to go, and then the door slowly opened up, and this man, who seemed very unthreatening and kind of confused, stepped out onto the porch, and the police immediately arrested him and took him away. A few minutes later, back at the newspaper headquarters, Vlado's editor got another phone call. And when he answered, it was the same police officer who had called before to warn him about this upcoming arrest. Except this time, the officer was calling to say the arrest had been made, they had caught their serial killer, and then he told the editor the name of the person they arrested. And and when the editor heard the name, he dropped the phone in shock. The serial killer was Vlado. It would turn out that
freaking called it, my brothers and sisters. We called it once again, man. That's MrBallen, man. That's why I said, man, the man sent chills down my spine and through my body. For real, man, because I'm sitting like, okay, this might be Vlado. And it seemed so fake, but it was actually him. This dude was literally reporting on his murders. Wow.
Vlado appeared very professional and calm on the outside, but inside he was full of rage, specifically at his mother, who he viewed as this terrible, cruel person. And after she died in 2002, Vlado became obsessed with this idea of getting revenge on his deceased mother. And the way he decided he would do that would be by killing random women who just kind of looked and seemed an awful lot like his mother, i.e., they were poor, older, and cleaning ladies. His 3 victims, Mitra in 2005, Lubitsa in 2007, and Zivana in 2008, had all personally known Vlado's mother. And so Vlado had actually used that connection to gain each of his victims' trust, and then once he had their trust, he would lure them away to strangle, stab, and beat them to death. In Vlado's explosive newspaper story, he lied about a whole bunch of things just to throw the police off. Like, for example, he made up that he spoke to a witness who claimed to have seen Zivana get into a car with 2 men right before she vanished. Vlado did not see that. That was just a total lie designed to confuse the police. Vlado had also been the one to plant that story on the radio about Zivana's son, Zoran, being in this terrible accident. You know, that had caused Zivana to run out of her house and be vulnerable to be scooped up and killed, which is exactly what Vlado wanted. He had called the radio station and told them about this accident, and because he had previously worked for that radio station, they believed him without doing any fact-checking and broadcast the story. And so really that whole radio broadcast was just a very intentional trap by Vlado to kill Zivana. But what ultimately got Vlado caught was in the article he wrote, he left in some really specific details that the police had not revealed to the public. And so basically by including these in the story, it meant Vlado had an inside scoop into what was really going on. Like, for example, Vlado said that all 3 of these women who had been killed by the serial killer had been strangled to death by telephone cords that were left at the scene. But again, the police had not revealed that to the public, and so when they read the story, they actually became very suspicious of Vlado and thought he could be involved in these murders. And so when Vlado felt like the police were trailing him just to intimidate him, in reality, the police were trailing Vlado because they thought he could be the murderer, and eventually, when they got a DNA sample from Vlado, it was confirmed that their suspicions were right. He was the killer. After Vlado's arrest, he was immediately charged with 2 of the 3 murders, and the police were getting ready to charge him with the 3rd, and they were even looking at a 4th victim, potentially, that maybe Vlado had killed as well, but they weren't entirely sure yet. But on June 23rd, so just 3 days after Vlado's arrest, he died in jail in a way that really didn't make any sense. Vlado had drowned in a small bucket of water inside of his jail cell while there were 3 other people inside of that jail cell with him who all said they didn't notice it happening. Officially, Vlado's death was ruled a suicide, and after his death, all of the murder investigations were closed.
Wow, the fact that he dead is so crazy to me, man. Like, the fact that he never got that it's not chance, it's not opportunity. That he never had to face the consequences for what he did is so freaking crazy, man. Cause it's like, I really believe that he committed suicide. And the 3 other dudes in the cell with him, that's just they cover up and they lying about it. The Vlado went over to that bucket of water and put his head inside of it so he couldn't face the consequences for his actions, man. This one was crazy as hell, y'all, because of the way that this man was reporting on murders that he committed. It's almost like he was trying his best to tell the police I'm the murderer without telling the freaking police that I'm the murderer. You know what I'm saying, man? Because these 3 murders happened over years. It spanned over a couple of years, man. And he was the one dropping clues about how this murder of Savannah, I think, rest in peace to her, I think that's her name, how that one is similar to the other 2 ladies from 2, 3, 4 years ago. You know what I'm saying? In 07 and 05 or whatever. It's like he was the one who was bringing that to light to police and to the public. But he was dropping stuff that the police ain't never had told the public before. Now, did he know he was doing that? Is that where he slipped up and messed up? I don't know if he was trying to drop those hints on purpose, knowing that he'll get caught or not. All I can say is I'm glad that he did get caught, man. Most definitely glad that he did get caught. It's just so bittersweet. It's so sweet and sour, the fact that he deceased too. And the way that he died, I'm pretty much sure is he committed suicide. Like a weak ass, punk ass bitch. You know what I'm saying, man? I hate murderers who do that. And this whole story just, anyway, y'all, just twisted and turned on his head for me personally. And like I said, maybe y'all already had looked at the title, Cleaning Lady Serial Killer Exposed by Reporter, and thought that it was a serial killer that was killing cleaning ladies. But I thought the serial killer was the cleaning lady at first. So once I realized we got into the store, MrBallen explained all that, I'm like, hold on, it's somebody out here killing cleaning ladies. And come to find out, it's the goddamn man who putting all the stories in the damn newspapers and stuff. It's the damn reporter who did it. Freaking crazy. Freaking crazy, my brothers and sisters. I digress. I'm gonna let y'all go, man. Hey, y'all make sure y'all hit that like button, comment, subscribe, do all that. Another MrBallen Sunday in the books. And best believe that we got plenty more to come. But until then, my friends, you know I also gotta say this. Love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.